Welcome to Unscripted with Jeff Pedowitz. I sit down with remarkable people from very different worlds, security and science, business and medicine, technology and the arts, for honest conversations about AI and where it's taking us. No scripts, no talking points, just what they actually think. I'm Jeff Pedowitz. Let's get into it.
Before a new drug ever reaches you, an enormous amount of strategy decides whether it gets developed at all and how it's sold to your doctor. My guest today, Jennifer Preston, is a biomedical engineer with a PhD, who now leads AI strategy for the consultants who shape those decisions across Pharma and Biotech. And here's the part that actually stopped me. Her firm uses AI to create synthetic patients and synthetic physicians, digital stand-ins that get interviewed and surveyed to test drug messaging before any real human is involved. So I wanted to ask an uncomfortable question underneath all of it. What does it mean when the healthcare industry starts making decisions based on people who don't actually exist? Jennifer, welcome to Unscripted. Let's get into it.
All right, sounds good.
Well, that seems like a good place as any to start. So people are already getting uneasy, right, with AI and healthcare, and they're up in arms about privacy, and there's such frustration. So now we have this whole synthetic layer. How would you calm somebody down?
First of all, for the most part, none of the decisions are being made exclusively based on these synthetic users, patients, physicians. We often call the synthetic part of the research phase 0. So what you really want to use the AI for is to vet the bad ideas, to vet the things that are just not going to land with anybody. Say you're looking at a marketing campaign, or say you're thinking of a new way to administer a drug, right? I don't know. There's creams and shots, and you can get an IV. Some people want to go into a clinic to get chemo. Some people may want to take a pill, right, and do it at home. Maybe there are another idea that someone has, and they want to see if it will land with physicians or patients. That's a great way to use AI. It's the general, the average. Is that going to work? Is that idea there? We have seen some great examples where companies have gone out with marketing campaigns or putting a specific drug with some certain side effects into a new indication, and it has not landed well. And even when they do that market research testing and they're interviewing actual physicians or actual patients, when that doesn't land well, it's extremely costly to the pharmaceutical company, which in turn generally makes your drug pretty pricey in the end for you. So if they can eliminate those bad ideas up front and really kind of vet what is right, then they go do the traditional market research that they're going to do. And what that allows them to do is capture the outliers, right? Make sure that you get that, but also focus that research to be on something that's really going to go forward and get a better answer for them and not waste that time or that money. So that's the basic reason that we use it today, and where we found it extremely helpful. It's also something, if you come up with a question at the end of your market research and it's one question, you just want to see kind of like the average, what is that going to be? Can you give me an idea? It's just kind of like a pulse point, like a poll would be, right? Think of political polls out there. That is not the real, right? But it's a pulse on the market.
I mean, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, right? I think, I think physicians and administrators can see value and where it can streamline things, but then also it can create more work. So, for example, we were at the doctor's office the other day, and the physician was complaining because AI is supposed to be streamlining the interpretation of the test results, and then someone still has to review it. But they were frustrated because AI keeps getting it wrong, right? So it's like summarizing it incorrectly, or it's making wrong assumptions, and so then the doctor, who's supposed to be saving time, right, then they have to go back and actually spend more time to review it. So is this one of these things where it gets worked out over time? But I mean, if there's already, distrust, as these things continue to happen, how does that help break down some of these barriers, right? If people are going to say, geez, I tried to use it, but it was wrong.
I think there's a couple of, we'll say, new companies that are coming about that are making sure that trust is there first, versus some of the more large language models that's out there where it's just pulling from things like Reddit or public sources where accuracy is an opinion rather than a fact. And even that, science changes, right? You learn new things all the time in science. So what was a fact yesterday may not be the accurate truth today because something new might have been learned. But that's where those models built more for a purpose. And I think you're going to see this a little bit more than you've seen it in the past, is going from that large language model that's the basis to small models. One, use less energy. And then two, are focused where you need it to be focused. Your example of going to the doctor's office and that medical record summary being incorrect, seen it myself at the doctor's office. But by narrowing that down, I mean, the doctor's office doesn't need to know housing prices, right? The doctor's office doesn't need to know all of this information, the weather even, right? They need to understand what's bounded by that. And by bounding things a lot more, you're going to be able to make them more accurate and help summarize that a little bit better for folks as well. Medical records are a whole fun industry because there's a lot of, as you pointed out, distrust, right? And that distrust means you're not going to tell the full truth, right? So now people are being prescribed medications that might actually have side effects with each other because they're not telling the whole truth. So how do you make sure there's a way to incorporate AI and have it be something that they can trust to use in the future? Because there is tons of benefits.
There's this potential for AI to streamline healthcare for both practitioners as well as patients. But I think in practice, like we're as well intended as HIPAA was, right? We all are dealing with this just massive overhead. Like it's so complicated. It's so incredibly inefficient across patient portals, multiple doctors. People still have to constantly repeat things. I mean, I'm amazed you still have to fill out paper forms in 2026. I don't understand. AI can only do so much if the processes are still manual. And or you have these siloed systems. As smart as AI is, it can't magically connect two things that aren't connected physically or logically.
Yeah. I like to say that one of the things I think AI in healthcare is, or at least in the development of drugs, is really could benefit, and I'm hoping we see it sooner rather than later, is most people are maybe unaware that most medications have been done based off of clinical trials that the average is a white male, right? And there is mandates across the FDA to include diversity in clinical trials, to making sure that those get to the right patients, that the right people can become part of that. But going to a whole nother layer of distrust in medicine is clinical trials and often diverse populations. So if AI can find the right people to build up that trust and to help get those people to be part of the clinical trials, it's going to speed up the drug development because you're going to get more people to the right clinical trial faster and to be able to get the answers faster. And then two, actually really understand that drug and how it affects different populations. What actually can go back to that trust is if a doctor can then say, oh, you're a white female or you're a Hispanic male, here's how this has affected others in your patient population. That's a completely different ballgame. And now there's an increased amount of trust in the whole medical community in and of itself. I think we're a little ways from getting there, but it is helping.
I see the potential. I can't help but the cynic to come out with me in this particular moment, though, because I'm thinking we already know there's so much bias in the training of the LLMs,
Yep.
right? And so, yes, AI is powerful and could do it, but this is not so much an AI problem as much as it's a it's a process and selection and human problem. So if AI by itself can't eliminate bias, if the trials are still going to white males, so it's not going to magically come up with data. Well, it could come up magically with data that doesn't exist. But so I think, how do we get one level above that, right? Because before we can start invoking the capability of AI, we have to change human behavior.
And that's part of it. I mean, one of the things I think a lot of people miss about AI is they think, oh, I'll just do this and it'll make my job easier. It will, but only a small amount. What you really need to do is change the process, right? To get the benefits out of AI, you really need to think different, think how workflows are different. It's something we're doing, at SAI today, is to really think, how do we do our work? And where should AI fit? And then where can it fit and benefit us the most, but also benefit the output the most, and make sure there's still a human in the loop? So if you think of medicine, right, what can you do? Where do you need to start? Is it building trust in those communities first to be able to get people to want to be part of these clinical trials, right? That's kind of the process. Where does that start? And I don't have expertise in how you do that. But that is something, to your exact point, like maybe AI can help figure out with those people where they need that trust to come from. Like where would they trust? How do they build that, right?
I think, look, in any communication between two or more people, you have intent and you have effect, right? So you can intend to have an honest dialogue or run a trial or help people, but the effect could be something really bad, if there's built-in or systemic biases, both in the people, and then of course they make it into the code. And it becomes very hard to discern, where that bias stops and starts.
Agree.
If you just agree with me, this isn't going to be any fun. Come on. So, I mean, you have really an interesting background, because you started off as a biomedical engineer, but now you're doing a lot more commercial strategy and competitive intelligence. So I'm just curious, what does the engineer in you see that maybe a strategist does not see, or vice versa?
Being an engineer, I think, makes you really think differently, right? I always like to say, as an engineer, you're often taught it's the input and the output that matter. The black box in the middle is just the black box. Your job is to figure out how to make that input be the output you want. So what I think it makes me realize is, when I'm thinking about building any kind of automation or AI, that input is what matters, right? Like what's going into my tool, what's going into my agent is critically important to be able to get anything I can rely on out. And so I think that's where the big engineer in me is very different from other people, because I mean, garbage in, garbage out, everybody talks about. But for me, it's not even just garbage in. What is that input? What should it be? Where is it coming from? What is the source? How clean is the data? That is so important when it comes to any AI agent, because that matters. So that's why I think that the engineers,
So do you think strategists miss that? Like they just go right to the concept or the idea, but they're not thinking about the inputs and the outputs?
I think they don't. How do I say this in the right way? I guess from a strategy perspective, I'll just take strategy consulting firms have been there. Kind of am now. Sometimes you don't care about, or have to, I should say, implement that strategy, right? You are looking for what are the right things to do. How it happens isn't necessarily part of always the strategy. Now, when I do strategy, I make sure that those plans and the initiatives are there and you understand where that's coming from, but most people I know do not.
So what was that IBM commercial from a number of years ago? Like, oh no, we just we just tell you what the strategy is. We don't actually implement it. So something like that. Yeah. Okay. Well, as a consumer, like we see how expensive the drugs are, even with insurance, a lot of times, and it's hard for us to understand. Like, gosh, why is this thing so expensive? We don't really see or understand the full life cycle. How does the drug start? How does it come to be? And what's that whole process? So, what actually happens? Like, what's in the room where it happens? I guess. And then now with AI, how does that play a role in that process of getting a drug to market?
Yeah, I mean, I think people are starting to become aware that it takes at least 10 years for a single molecule or a single asset to hit the market in any kind of drug capacity. One of the things our consulting side does is they have what's called a 5X model. So if you have an asset that's new, hasn't been in any clinical trials, and this is something that every pharma company thinks about, is what's the best path to get that drug to market? About 90% of phase 1 clinical trials fail, 80 to 90%. So, you're looking at a pretty high failure rate there, which is part of the reason it's expensive. Not every asset can turn into a medicine that people take. And even when it does, it may have been used for other indications. I mean, the most common one of is the GLP-1s that started as diabetes medicines and now are weight loss drugs. I mean, that's the big one today, right? But there's a lot out there that are prescribed for multiple indications. So when you think about a go-to-market strategy and you are starting at a before phase 1, your chances of getting through, let's say, are 20% best, and then the next one. So how do you ensure that that is actually going to make it through? What is your best path to do that? And there's more than 5 paths you can take, right? Because there's speed to get it done. Is it fastest to market? Is it largest population it's going to impact? Is it a rare disease, right? That's going to help your fast to market. Honestly, if it's a rare disease and there's nothing on the market, even if it's a common disease and there's nothing on the market today, that's going to impact. So it really depends on what that company wants to do and where they want to go, and kind of the base of that product and what they want to do. So any of those paths could change. They ideally don't change mid-cycle. So once you're into phase 2 clinical trials, they're probably not going to change. And by the time you're into phase 3, they're definitely not going to change where they go unless they're starting to fail their phase 3 trial, and which is a very costly, very, very costly process for folks. And, they may think of trying another phase 3 if they're not going to pass, if they're not going to get through the first one, but that's unlikely because they're so expensive. They don't.
So, given all that, though, you have, at least you start off with a hypothesis. The trial is to test it, right, to see if it works. You still actually have to get through first on the animal side, then to human beings, and you actually have to get the results. Where, though, can AI help in that process, and can it accelerate, or is it just more about analyzing data or predicting models? Because you still won't know until you know, right? If it's a new drug, you actually have to see what happens.
You do, to an extent, right? Once you have the molecule identified, understanding how there's a lot out there today, right? There's a lot of molecules that have been turned into drugs, right? And so you have a better idea than you might have. Now, some of the newer technologies, cell and gene therapies that are coming out on the market, those are there's less information out there than there is for a more traditional medicine that you're going to see. So you have some information. And if you're looking to go to market, you've probably gone through that initial testing to know that this could become a medicine of some kind. So now you're looking pre-phase 1, and that's when you start making the decisions. You know enough to look at how hard will it be to recruit for your clinical trials. That is actually a big factor, right? If you're looking at a rare disease, how many people actually have that disease, right? That's one of the bigger challenges with gene therapy specific is how many people have that and are willing to change or use gene therapy to treat that disease. Depends upon what it is, right? There are plenty of rare diseases out there. People don't have enough side effects to risk a treatment. So it really depends on where that goes, and there are a lot of tiny decisions. What else is on the market today? I mean, that's a huge factor. That's where that competitive intelligence comes in. What else is on the market and what else is in the pipeline? Because you're looking at a 10-year pipeline. So what else is in the market? How close is it to what you're looking at? How similar is it to mechanism of action? How similar is it to just all sorts of different components of it to get to market? And so, how differentiated are you going to be? If there's nothing out there, it's a different story than if there's 15 drugs out there today. I mean, you think of most of the cancer therapies out there that you have today, right? You don't usually actually have a single drug that you have as part of your chemotherapy. It's a grouping. So most of the clinical trials that are out there today are testing the value of adding a different component to your regime for, say, oncology medicines. So it's a very different thought process than I think a lot of people really recognize it is for medicine, of just how broad it could be, where you need to go. And yes, they're expensive, but not all medicines are expensive. Some are, and you
so
also
it's kind of like a medical cocktail, right? Like great bartenders can take the same ingredients and mix it together to make a different drink. So you're basically saying, but with the help of AI, you can sort of mix and match to get a more higher efficacy rate.
A higher efficacy rate. Also, one of the things that they've found hugely beneficial with AI, and going back to that clinical trials, is finding people to be part of those clinical trials. Because clinical trial recruitment is really, really, really hard. And so anything you can do to accelerate that recruitment and get the right people into that trial as fast as possible, rather than waiting 2 years to finish recruiting, you've now delayed that process by 2 years, right? Now your treatment might be also 2 years, and then you've got a 4-year window that you're looking at from start of a phase 1 clinical trial or a phase 2 to close.
But as gene therapy continues to advance, the abilities of AI to be able to analyze, generate, do you think that we could get to a point where we have really not so much a trial, but a personalized treatment plan, right? Where AI can actually come up with a unique cocktail for you, the individual, versus a group?
I do. Because you're going to be able to understand a little bit more how your own body metabolizes different things, because everybody's is different. And by being able to run AI on how you metabolize, I'm sure they're going to come up with a test, 4 or 5 components of a drug cocktail. It can tell you which one is the right one, right? We're not there yet, but we're getting closer. It's just AI hasn't quite advanced to that level yet. I mean, everybody's been talking for decades about precision medicine, right? Finding that perfect drug plan for you, or that perfect care plan for you to help extend your life. I know a lot of, these longevity experts.
I mean, I even think, like the running joke, like, senior citizens, they have their pill cases, by the day of the week, right? Like, okay, it's my Monday after. Even if you could just engineer, instead of having to take 30 pills a week, right? Okay, here's your one pill. It's just got your...
Or even one pill a day, right? Yeah. Every morning you just take this and you're good for the day, right? Now,
It seems like that should be possible, right? Like, because you're taking them all anyway, but you have to have all these different bottles.
You would think so, but when you start mixing those molecules together, they are not always friends.
Do I feel like the bottle like jumping up and down because the pills are sort of.
I'm just imagining your body kind of exploding inside instead. So, I mean, just think some people can take an aspirin on an empty stomach, and others cannot tolerate an aspirin on an empty stomach because it just doesn't work for them. And it's as simple as that complexity for people, right?
And you have to deal with half-lives and all the other things.
It's an aspirin, right? And there are different half-lives for probably all of those drugs that you're taking. So yeah, I think there's going to be ways that it can for sure simplify, streamline, improve everybody's individual, I don't want to say drug medicines that they're taking. We'll go with medicine. I think it will. And I think that's where the benefits of AI are going to accelerate that. We've been talking about it for years, but it's hard. And when you start thinking about medicine for you and medicine for me, think of how expensive it is for a drug company to be able to launch a product that's going to affect millions of people. And they're assuming millions of people. You and I are 2 people, and we're looking for our own version. I mean, you are looking at some gene therapies that are out there being $1 million per treatment.
So then, different take on this. If we do go down this path of universal basic income, do we get universal basic medicine, or how does this work in a world, right, where?
I think that's where you'd have to go pretty far down. If it is really related to each person sort of has their treatment, I think you're going to need to have, this is maybe my former life, I've been in life sciences for a long time, and I started more in been all over life sciences. But one of the jobs I had for a long time was working in the mass spec space, right? So testing, mass spec chromatography. So I think you're going to spend more time testing how your blood works, the proteins, your proteome, your metabolome, to understand how you work, and then you can understand those medicines. And I think if you're looking at basic medicine, it has to be tied to you, or it has to be just general. Everybody gets X, Y, and Z, and let's hope it works for you. I mean, that's probably not going to be the way we're going to go, because people will not accept that, right? They want it for them because you do everything. Your body is everyone is so different.
It really is fascinating, right? When just the complexities of it all, and just one different strand of DNA, one different cell structure, it can completely change whether or not something works. I mean, you look at
siblings, right, that are incompatible organ donors, and if they were to have they don't have the same diseases, they don't get the same things, right? Even
twins, right? There's studies on twins where you would think absolutely they would have the same reaction, but they don't.
Yeah, and even identical twins is closer, right? You're going to have you're going to be able to donate for each other and things like that. But depending upon how old you are, the reactions your body will have are going to be slightly different. Maybe it's based on what you ate today, right?
I just started thinking about, blood types when you're talking about donors. Are we at the point now we have synthetic blood? Like we can engineer a type O, type AB, or whatever?
I mean, there is synthetic blood, but it hasn't gotten to the point where you can get like the rare ones. It's definitely the emergency scenario.
Or the movies, when you gotta substitute that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna transplant synthetic blood for the most part these days, unless you're. But I think there has been some talk about it. We'll just say I'm aware of talk of it. It just
there's
not where I'm researching these days. So
a lot of talk on being able to somehow download your consciousness, your brain, your activity into some kind of AI system. how much science fiction is it, or are we somewhat closer to that reality?
I hope we're not close to that reality. I'll just say that. We always joke in my family, like, we don't need two of me, right? Like, I don't want my kid to be exactly.
Yeah, my family would definitely say that about me, for sure.
Right? There doesn't need to be two of the exact same anything, right? And putting your consciousness into something is just, it's you again. I mean, if you think of it into a recorder, like, I'd love to be able to hear people who have passed in my family's voices again, right? But I'm not sure I would want to talk to them again. That just makes me uncomfortable. I mean, other people would probably love it, right? So I think it just depends on who you are, whether you think you would want that or not. But I just...
Well, I mean, like, you already have people that do taxidermy with their pets, right?
Oh, yeah.
Or their animals. That's been around for a long time. And
forever, yeah. But the animal can't respond back to you in the same way that you.
But it brings a degree of comfort.
Correct.
So.
But now take that animal's personality and put it in a robot dog that looks like them, or cat, or bird, or bunny, or whatever.
Well, I don't know, man. It really is an interesting ethical dilemma. I mean, as we start to think about what life is, what happens after life. But, for a lot of people that have lost loved ones, you'll hear them lament all the time, gosh, I miss talking to them. I wish I could hear their voice. I want to be able to call out my mother. I want to be able to call out my father. It seems on one hand that would be a really awesome thing to be able to do. I really want to be able to talk to that loved one again. On the other hand, I could see where it could get a little crazy.
I mean, I think it would. I've been there. I definitely have been like, man, I really wish I could call, someone who has passed that is part of my family. Like, really wish I could. However, I feel like it would maybe not. Maybe it's just me again getting way off topic, but I feel like it would be limiting the grief process, right? I mean, for some people, maybe it would enhance it to be able to have that bridge. But I know for me, I think it would have delayed the grief process because I had the ability to not let go.
You still have people, though, that can't ever let go or deal with it for years.
True.
I think that's why certainly we have religion as one mechanism. It brings faith, brings comfort to many. Others turn to, alcohol or drugs or, reckless behavior as a coping mechanism. I just wonder if there's a healthier way as a bridge. Are you mature enough to accept that this person isn't really here physically anymore, but yet you can still relate to the essence of them? Yeah,
that is way outside my area.
Really? You don't cover this in a Monday meeting?
We do not cover this at all in a Monday meeting.
Hey, maybe you should.
We're covering new ideas and how you leverage AI to, again, change your workflow while not overspending these days. So, because it is getting expensive as well. And that's where, pharma companies, now your drug's expensive. Now you're looking at another tool to add in to what the scientists are using to develop your drug.
That is true. So did you always think you wanted to be a scientist?
I did. I think I was 5 or 6. And my parents actually, near Christmas, took me to a hospital. And I was able to give some toys away, to donate some toys. And there was a little girl who looked exactly like one of my best friends. And she was in the hospital and she was going to be there over Christmas. And I couldn't understand why. I mean, I was 6, right? How come she's in the hospital? Why can't she go home with her family? She needed a heart transplant. And so I basically said, then I want to help her and I want to be a heart surgeon. So for, I think, most of my childhood, I was set on being a heart surgeon. And then I went to college and I was a biomedical electrical engineer. And I discovered I really liked biomedical engineering specifically. And I thought, man, I think I can help more people if I'm an engineer because I can develop something cool. And then
you can design hearts.
Yeah, I could do that. I mean, there were just so many cool things. And then I found I love sports, and I found that you could do engineering and sports at the same time. So engineering on athletes, this was amazing. Obviously, that's not where I ended up. You know, career paths have this winding way of changing throughout your life in unexpected ways. I love where I am. I honestly, as probably a 6-year-old, couldn't imagine something like AI. Maybe I could. I imagined the iPhone as a child when I used to tell my dad, hey, see, Dad? I'm sure most kids do.
Now, when I was a kid, I dreamed of being a rock and roll singer. And then, of course, my reality came when I can't sing. So, you know, kind of sort of puts a damper on that choice of a career when you don't actually have any musical talent.
That does. I mean, you could have been an actor. I mean, I guess you would have had to still sing.
That's true. But it is funny. I mean, when you think about why people choose what they choose, and I think some people, like our oldest daughter, she knew about the same at your age. She always wanted to be a doctor. Now she is. You know, the other two are still finding their path, and you know they've gone through different things. So I think it is really interesting how life keeps throwing you curveballs, and you know you have to keep adjusting to it.
Or more specifically, life keeps throwing you unexpected pitches. Like you can just, you know, choose to swing for the fences or let it pass you by, right? And hope it wasn't a strike. If you want to go with your baseball metaphor.
Well, you did say you love sports, so we can,
I do love sports. I can use whatever metaphor you would like there. But you know, it's more about grabbing. I think for me, it's been more about an opportunity presenting itself, and in many cases, knowing nothing about where I was headed except for it sounded really cool, and that's where I went.
It is cool. I mean, I think I think all of engineering is cool. Some of my favorite times are when we see our manufacturing clients and I get to go to their plants, and I love seeing all the robotics and the assembly lines, and no two things are the same. I could watch it for hours, and I sit there thinking, like, who designed this? Like, who came up with this? This is so brilliant. An engineer did, you know. But it's just really cool when you have to think about all the particulars. Last month we had Claus Nielsen on, and he was in our group, and he was in robotics, and he was just describing how hard it is to do things that, you know, like for example, the hand.
Yeah.
Like all the various pressure points and the various things, and how do you get a robot to shake a hand and know if it's too firm or too soft, and how do you react to that? And just we were talking through all the physics of that, and that's just one part of the body. So I can only imagine, as a biomedical engineer, just all the various permutations of this.
Yeah, it's incredible. And if you also think about it another way, if you kind of go down the other side of it, there's also human factors engineering, right? Which is a lot of biomedical engineers. But it's how do you make sure you don't make an error in a hospital? How do you put in it so that they only have to push 2 buttons and they can't push the wrong dose for a patient? Right? How do you factor in a whole layer of that? Similarly with the touch, that if you have a machine that's giving your blood pressure, right, regularly, if you're, let's say you're in the ICU, or even if you're just in a hospital and you have that machine on you that regularly does your blood pressure, how do you ensure it's not gripping too tight? Where is that pressure point?
That's true. And because everybody has, there's probably physics of this, right? How big's your arm? What is your current blood pressure? Do you have sensitive veins?
Much muscle versus fat you have. How thick are your bones? Everybody has different thickness for bones. It's not like somebody that's at my exact height and weight has the same size bones I do. That's not even true. So it's fascinating when you think of all the permutations of people that can be out there. And I mean, the fact that we have shoes that most people can wear and are comfortable in them is amazing.
And then, of course, you have the shoes that we just want to look good, and secretly they're killing us, but you're like, but they look good. They're so cute,
I actually remember in grad school, I did a presentation on high heels, or on heels and shoes and history and the horrific mechanics and biomechanics they are for the human body. And I did it while wearing a pair of heels. As I'm saying, this is horrible. You should never do this.
It must have been a fun research assignment, though, as you probably went to the mall with all your friends. Like, okay, keep walking back and forth. Now try the 4-inch heels. Now try the 6-inch heels and see how you feel.
Oh, no, it was not as simple as that. It was stand in front of some cameras, get some, like, where are the angles of your body? How are you changing? Like, where are your hips? Where are your ankles? Your entire posture changes when you're wearing heels, and not for the better.
I know there is a lot of science in shoes, right? And I think Nike really started a lot of it, at least from a running shoe perspective, right?
From a running shoe perspective, they started a good amount of it, and they were somebody who I actually worked for while I was in grad school. They funded a lot of my research. So it was, they're very, very, very big into the right mechanics. There were a lot of what was called a fifth metatarsal injury at the time in basketball players, and they were trying to understand, was it because of the shoes that were causing these bones to fracture, or was it taping had become really big at the time, or was it something else that they didn't know about? And so they were doing a lot of testing on something as simple as basketball players.
Because didn't they, the high tops, which were very popular, right, in the 70s and 80s, and it was thought at the time it gave more stability, but then there was a lot more knee injuries, right? And then
because if you restrict one part of your body, that force has to go somewhere else. So if your ankle is taped or even restricted in a shoe, that force is going to go to your knee or your hip or your back. Gotta go somewhere.
Connected to the thigh bone. The thigh bone's connected to, yeah. See, I still can't sing, but yeah.
There's that thing. AI might be able to help you.
But
what if there's a synthetic version of you that can sing?
Okay. Well, let me know when that comes out. I'll have to do that. So what's something that's on the horizon that maybe a lot of people don't know about from either an AI or biomedical standpoint?
I think that there's a lot that's coming up on the horizon for both. I think from an AI perspective, you're going to see in my mind, you're going to see a transition to the smaller models. I think you're really going to start seeing that across companies and agents. They're going to look to go small to minimize costs and energy and efficiency. I think, the LLMs aren't going to go away. You're not going to lose OpenAI or Anthropic. I just think that they're going to be different purposes. And at least that's from the AI perspective. And I think from a health perspective, I think you are going to see drugs come to market faster. I do think you're going to start to see a little bit of a personalized medicine. I think we're still probably 10, 15 years away from something like that. To be honest, in the life science industry, you're generally 10 to 15 years away from everything.
Everything's always,
And I don't think that's going to change. Pharma needs to be cautious, and they should be. They are an industry that should absolutely take every precaution that there is to
recognize what those effects on someone are, right? There's a balance, right? You can go back to oncology. There's a balance. How do you make sure that the cancer, doesn't kill you, and neither does the chemotherapy, right? How do you extend someone's life in those cases? So they need to be cautious. But I think there's some cool things we'll probably see in the next couple of years that healthcare puts out there that's going to change how we think of things. I mean, you're already seeing drugs going direct to patient, which is new. Honestly, it's probably 5-10 years old where you're seeing medicines advertised. So pharma is adjusting, and they're trying to adjust fast, which they don't do well, to a new consumer type. I mean, they spent years running physicians' offices and walking in a door, right, and treating or having physicians know which drug to give patients, not patients know what drug to ask for, or they know what drug to ask for. So
it's exciting times for sure. So Jennifer, thank you for your insights, and thank you for being on Unscripted.
Thank you. This was fun.
Come back again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.